It's time to power up and create our first component together. Our application template needs its own header component, and we're going to build it, and it's something you'll use in all your applications. So take a look at the screen here. We have the final product here that we're going to build by the end of this video, and any application that you build in PowerApps, any good application is going to have a bar at the top. It's going to have the name of the application. It's going to have some type of graphic, a company logo, application logo. It could have a back button, home button. As you can see here, we've got the user greeted, and we're also displaying the name of the screen. Isn't that nice? In this video, I'm going to step you through each step of creating a new component. So if you've never built a component before, this is going to be great for you. Eventually, we're going to build more complex components, navigation components. But here, we're going to build out this header component, and it's going to make your application look much better than if it didn't have something like this. And it does serve a function. It gives the user a good, consistent look and feel throughout the application, no matter what screen you're on. And they're always going to have a back button, and they're always going to know what screen they're on, and they're always going to know what their name is. And they're not going to mix this application up with another application that you wrote for them because it has the name of it up there in neon green. Let me show you this component. If I click over here on components and you see I have the comp header component selected. These are all the properties that we're going to create. What's great about creating custom properties like this is that these values can be passed in, and then you can reuse this component in another application and pass different values in. So it's reusable. In software development, we have an acronym that we like to use. It's DRY. Don't repeat yourself. So it's a tragedy to open up PowerApps, start with a brand new blank canvas and start from scratch and do the same type of stuff you do in every single application. You're wasting a lot of time. You don't want to repeat yourself. You want to create reusable components wherever you can. It's going to save you time. And when there's a change to be made to something like an application header, instead of changing it in 7 different applications, you could change it in one place. You could change it in the component, and then you could refresh the component reference and have that change implemented in all your applications. Instead of just 7 applications, it could be 70. Can you imagine making the same change in dozens and dozens of applications, where if you had make it a single component, you could change it in one place? It's the beauty of reusable components. So that's what we're going to build today. This video is part of a series in which we're building our own application template. There's going to be a playlist below in the video description. We can click on that playlist. You can see all the related videos where we build out this application template. If you guys find anything helpful in here, do me a favor and click on that like button. Let's jump in. All right, let's create a new and basic component here. We're just going to learn the fundamentals of creating a component within PowerApps. So the first thing to do is go over to components, click on my component just once, and you're going to get component 1. Now, first step is to give your component a meaningful name. I'll prefix all my components with COMP, short for component. Let's call this header. This component will serve as the application header within our application. So the height of this component should probably be about 100, 120, and the width, we would want this to be the full width of whatever we're dropping this on. Now, you can actually get at that by using the app object within PowerApps and say design width. So if you put this component on something that's a little wider or a little more narrow than what you expected, it's going to automatically size. So we might actually want the background color or the fill of this component to be a specific color. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to click on new custom property, and we're going to call this. Now, to stay consistent with PowerApps, I'm tempted to call this fill. However, we already have a fill property here. So I'm going to call it fill background. So I'd recommend for display name, you actually put spaces in here, make it very human readable, easy to read and understand. The name will strip out all the spaces for you. And if other people are going to be using this component besides yourself, be sure to put in a description here. So because I can't call this fill, I'm going to say this is the fill or the background color of this component. Property types are either input or output. Most of your property is going to be input. This is information that's being passed in your component for your component to work with. And then the output, of course, is information that you can pass back to the application. Now, this is going to be color. There's all kinds of different types, which is great. I'm going to pick color. I'm going to go ahead and click create. You can go back and edit those details of that property you just created by clicking on the right side right here. So there's 2 parts. First one will give you this code window, allow you to change the value for that, the default value. If you click on the type, it's going to bring this window back up. So the default value for this, I'm going to say dark gray. Now you notice it didn't actually change the background or the fill of the component. This doesn't look like a dark gray. It looks like either a really light gray or a white. In fact, it didn't change it at all. So we have a component here. A component is a little bit like a screen. It's a container, but if you click on it and go over here to fill, I'm going to click on the word fill to go up here. And from here, I'm going to reference comp header, which is the name of our component. And I'm going to say fill background. There we go. So now if this component was dropped onto a screen and that color was changed, it would update it. Let's add this component to a screen. Click on this little plus sign over here on the left side. Go down here to custom, click on that, and there it is. So I'm going to click on it, and there it is. You see it has a dark gray background. All right, let's change that. Fill background. So if I click on that, look at that. That default value appears there. In one of my last videos, I taught you how to create your own custom theme within PowerApps by using a global variable. So I'm going to use that global variable that I showed you to use that video. This video, that video, and any other videos related to building your own application template, they're all a part of a playlist that I've created here on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. I'll have links in the video description below. And if this video helps you out with anything, if you don't mind, click on the like button. It helps out the algorithm to let other people know this is a good video. We have got a global variable that we can use that we learned from the previous video, GBL theme. And what this is simply a global variable that has color values that we like, that we've set up as a theme. If you want to peek at that, here's how we created it. What types of things would you like in your header component? Well, I could tell you I would like to have the name of the application, perhaps the currently logged on user. So let's add these things. Go over to components, and we're back at our component here. Now you notice it still has that dark gray. That's because these things are separated. They're decoupled, or loosely coupled, as we like to call in the software industry. I'm going to add a label to this. Very good. All right, so this label is going to hold the application name, and we want to pass that in. So let's click on the comp header. Let's create a new property. Application name. And it's going to be input. It's going to be text. I'm going to click create. We could call this something like new PowerApps application. I like to make it a little long because sometimes names of applications are a little long and you want to get a good idea. Now, you notice the label didn't pick that up because we actually need to go into the text expression of the label and pick that up. So comp header dot application name. There we go. Now, if we go back to our screen, you notice that that does show up, but but it's lacking some contrast and it looks not so great. If you remember from our theme, we actually have a different color that we'd like to use for that. So let's pass that color in. Create a new custom property and we'll say foreground color, typically color of text shown. It will be input, but it will be of type color. We'll do that. Let's make the default foreground color something that will stand out against something dark like white. Now notice that didn't change automatically, so we need to click on the label, go to the color, and we need to reference our property, comp header dot foreground color. There we go. Now if we go back, there we go. We actually have a specific color we'd like to use here. It's held in the same global variable, global theme dot primary dark for color. There we go. So now in the application, if we ever change primary dark for color, it will dynamically change that. Isn't that nice? What about an image? Some type of image for the application or for the organization you're writing it for? Well, let's go add that. Go back into components. Let's add an image. There we go. Let's put that in here and let's make this 120. Okay, whenever you add a new image, it uses this sample image keyword, which pulls in this exact image. If we go back and look, it's there, but we probably don't want to use that. What I would recommend is using the logo of the organization you're writing this for. Get your hands on the PNG with a transparent background. That's what will look best, in my opinion. I'm going to upload PowerApps logo for this. All right, so in order to add multimedia, image, or graphic, go in here to multimedia, click on upload. All right. I name all my graphics before I upload them into PowerApps. No spaces, no special characters, and I prefix it with a lowercase GRA for graphic. That's what I recommend. Can we just add this to our component? Yes, we can. Is that how you should do it? No. Okay, so what we need to do, or what we should do, is we need to add a new property. So that image can be passed into our component. Call this app logo, and it will be of type image. Click create, and over here for the default, I'm going to reference the sample image. If you're over here and you drop in this component and you see this, you know something's wrong. You actually need to pass in whatever image that you want. So click on this image, and it's referencing sample image. But what we want to do is we want to say comp header dot app logo. Okay, so for app logo, I'm just going to click on this drop down and look at this. GRA PowerApps logo. Look at that. I'm going to tell you right away, this blue theme that we created before isn't going to look very good with the logo. So the logos, the branding, and your themes that you create in PowerApps should match up for it to look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in one of my PowerApps themes from my application template, and we'll use that theme so everything looks good. All right, so for this button here, for defining a theme, I pasted in this code here. There's the code for the new theme. You want to check out that theme? I'm going to click on it here. There we go. So this logo looks a lot better in this header. Now, what I don't care for very much is that there's no spacing. It looks a little cramped around the logo. So for this image here, you might want to give it some padding around the edges. Let's start off with 10 all the way around. Go back. That looks a lot better. Now, something we could do here, can make this longer just in case their application name is a bit longer in length. Copy and paste that label. We'll move this down. And I'd like to make this smaller. Maybe like a 17 or 15. Now for this text, let's add another property. So right now we have the application name. Let's add a welcome message. Input text, that's good. All right, so for the default, what I'm going to say is welcome. And perhaps we'll just grab the user's name, full name. Maybe put a comma in there. And then we'll also put an exclamation point. So now we want this label to look at that property. Welcome message, there we go. Okay, let's go back over to our app and see how this looks here. Looks a tad smaller than what I'd like it to look like. Also, I'd like for these two fonts to look a little different. So let's go with a dancing script for the application name and maybe even make it bigger, like 28. And for this, let's make it a little smaller, maybe like a 13, and also move it up a little more. Now let's go look at the color theme we have here. I think I'd like one color, primary dark, and maybe the secondary light. Okay, so I like that color. I like the title to appear in that green. I think that would look nice. So let's go over here and let's add a new property for that highlight color. There we go, highlight color. And instead of text, it's going to be color. And we'll create it. Now let's create a default color, yellow. And then for this title here, we will set this up to look for the highlight color. So we move over here and we'll zoom out. There we go. And the color that I want to pass in is the secondary light. There we go. I like it. Sort of want the font to be bigger. So let's see what we can do here. Let's try 36. It's probably a little too much. Let's make both of these extend all the way to the edge, but make this more like a 34. There we go. Now, we could create a property for that. You could create a property for anything in your component. So we could make that the font point dynamic. I like how that looks. All right, so the next thing that I would like to add here is another bar to this application header, and I want it to dynamically display the screen that they're on. We can do that by accessing the app object within PowerApps to get at that screen name. And I like to have a back button visible on all screens. So let's do that. All right, so let's add that space. Let's add that bar here within the component. So the first step is to make this larger. So let's make this more like 160 in height, maybe 180. Let's add in a rectangle here. There we go. So we want the app to pass in the color for this particular bar. I'm going to click on the comp header. I'm going to add a new property, And I'm going to call this screen heading fill. And it's going to be a color. Now for the default color for this, I'm going to say light gray. And then for this rectangle, for the color, I'm going to say comp header screen heading fill. There we go. All right, let's go look at that. Okay. Let's go look at our colors here. We probably want to pass in this primary light. So let's do that. Primary light. Very good. All right. Now, something I notice here, it almost looks like it's got a bit of a purple, and it does. Okay, so what that is the fill for this component is coming around the edges. What I might end up doing is making a copy of this rectangle, putting up here. Moving that to the back and setting up this rectangle to actually get at the fill background. Didn't make a difference because the fill of the component still has that purple. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up this to be transparent. So that's one way of getting rid of that purple there. All right, I think we got it. Now we still have got some little bit of a ghost line in there. What we can do is we can just completely get rid of those borders. And finally, I think it did it. All right, there we go. Okay, let's add in a new label that we'll have for the screen heading. And I think I'm going to make it line up with all this other stuff here. Maybe not as big. That's a 15. Might want to make that like a 17. So what we'll do is we'll add a new property. We'll call this screen name. It'll be text. Now let's set up the default for screen name. We can access that app.ActiveScreen.name. Okay. Now because we're in a component, we're not really on a screen. So we'll do an if is blank. If it is blank, we'll say screen name here. Otherwise, we'll actually use that value. Then for this label, we actually need to reference it. Comp header screen name. Very good. So now if we go over here, new screen. So let's rename this screen. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Notice this hasn't changed. Now if I go over here to create theme, go to a different screen and then come back, it will change. Now we might actually want to pass in a good forecolor and contrast to that primary light. So we actually need to set up a property for that. So we have screen heading fill. Let's say screen heading foreground color. And it will be color. Now the default will be black. It's already black. So if you use an RBGA function and put zeros in the first three parameters, it is black. So I'll just go ahead and leave it like that. But we need to make sure this label is picking that up. So we'll say comp header screen heading foreground color. So I'm going to pass in GBL theme primary light for color. There we go. Now let's check this out. It's actually a purple. All right, so we know it's working before it was black. All right, let's add in now a back button. Insert an icon, any icon, just click on something. And then once it's down here, you can go over here to the icon and do a search for back or whatever you want to put in there. Now I'm going to want to have maybe a 10 padding right on the top and the bottom. And we'll actually pick up the color, comp header. Okay, so we'll pick up that color that we use for the text there. Now, I really don't care for the spacing. I like that these things are lined up, but this thing over here by itself, it seems like it almost needs some. We could do something like and make this a lot smaller. What I might do is a rectangle for that back button. Now there is a shortcut which is use control bracket. There we go. So that was control bracket So if you have a control selected, you hit control, bracket, you see how it moves yeah. We'll do a fade on this, color fade, make it a little darker, so maybe 10%. And instead of 60, let's do, and instead of 120, 125, and instead of X, we'll say 5, and then we will bring this down a little bit there. Let's see what that looks like. I think maybe a 5% fade might be good, might be better. Okay, and I might actually put a border around that. So on the rectangle, I'm going to go to border. I'm going to keep it as solid, make it a 1, and then for the border color, I'm going to say color fade, do another 5%, and let's see what that looks like. Very subtle. I like subtle. The back label here, I feel like needs to be moved over a little bit, maybe 55. Okay, I like that. Change the screen name. We'll come back. How do we get this back button to work that we've created? Well, the first thing we want to do, we want to make sure this all fits in here. And so we've got the icon, we have a label, and we have that rectangle. Let's turn that into a group. I have a whole video on the back function. Very simple though. Go into action, on select for all of these, and we'll simply call the back function. Let's try it out. As we can add a button. It's a little temporary thing here. And we'll say navigate. We'll say, yeah, create theme. We'll go there and we will, you know what? Let's just take this whole component, we'll copy it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control A and I'll just move everything down a little bit. There we go. Before I paste that over. Copy, paste. There we go. Look at that. I'll run it. Hit the button to go to the other screen and then I'll click on back. There you go. Have you ever noticed if you ever hover over something, even though you've got something in the on select, it doesn't turn into a little hand like that? What if you want the little hand to display all the way around here? There's a trick to do that, and that is to have an icon. I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to do a paste, and I'm going to group that together with it. Okay. And this new icon, you want that to stretch all over there. And you want to set the color to be transparent. Now it should work. So let's go to that screen. See how you still get the pointer icon when you're over any other part of it, and it works. What other things do you think should go in this component? Or what ideas do you have to build a component of your own? I know I'm about to create a new component for the menu for this application template, but what other ideas do you have for components? Please let me know in the comments. You know what we should have done here for our header component? We just had this application name as new PowerApps application. What we should do is we should go into the App.OnStart, create a global variable that will have miscellaneous values for the application, like the name of the application. So let's go do that. App.OnStart, add some space. I want to say set GBL app settings. There we go. And we'll set this up as a record type of value. One of the things that we'll want to put in here, we'll say application name. Now, what do we have here right now? New PowerApps application. I'm going to say my PowerApps template. Something you might want to do is also put in here app version, and I like to version my apps with the date 2022-02. Okay, so you could put things in there like that. I just wanted to make sure that we had an application name that we can pass the value dynamically into the header component on each of our screens. We don't want it to be a literal value like this, okay? We want that in a variable so we can change it in one place if the value ever needs to change. Because this is simply a 5-screen application right now. What if they're 20 to 30 screens? You wouldn't want to have to go through all of them to change something that simple. Maybe you're dealing with customers or clients that want to change their mind all the time with the name of the app. They might want to make it into an acronym, and then they might change their mind that they don't want it to be an acronym, whatever. If you have it as a variable, it's no big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Run on Start, and then I'm going to click on the component. I'm going to go into application name. I'm going to replace this with GBL app settings dot app name. Okay, I'm going to copy that because now I need to go around to all 5 screens and replace it. Yeah, that one's done. So we just need one more. There we go.
If you found anything in this video helpful, we would really appreciate you click on that like button.